Have you ever wondered what it takes to become a champion and win big time? Whether that be in sports, in business, in your investments, or just in life in general. If so, today's conversation is for you. We are going to discuss what it takes to develop a champion's mindset and what you can do starting today to change your mind and start achieving goals you never thought possible. Welcome to C60 Health Connections, where we meet with leading experts who can help you elevate performance in all aspects of your life. The inspirational Tasha Danvers is with us today. Tasha is a two-time Olympian and Olympic bronze medalist. She is an international speaker, author, mentor, clarity coach, and elite performance trainer for individuals and businesses who want to achieve next-level results. In addition to her Olympic medal, she has climbed Mount Kilimanjaro and was an ambassador for Jaguar Motor Company's Sports Foundation. Tasha has also been a graduation keynote speaker for the Croydon College in London. She is a proud mom who is very passionate about inspiring people to follow their passion and pursue their dreams while making a difference. My name is Jessica McNaughton, and I'm the CEO at C60 Purple Power and shopc60.com. I'm a business executive with years of experience in corporate America, and for more than 20 years, I've been exploring various modalities in health, wellness, and spirituality. Now, before we get started, any of these statements have not been approved by the Food and Drug Administration. Any products or topics discussed today are not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, mitigate, or prevent any disease. So with that, Tasha, it's so great to see you. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. It's great to see you too. You just look so amazing. You must be taking C60.
You were so awesome. I just adore you. You and I met a couple years ago, and you had reached out to me because you were curious about C60 and its ability to support the body recovering from oxidative stress after exposure to radiation. And here we are a few years later, and I'm so excited to introduce you to our audience because you are just the embodiment of somebody who is living on purpose with great passion, and you're an inspiration to all. So I'm really excited about this conversation today. I'm wondering if you can just give our audience a little bit of background on your history and your upbringing, because I really want to dive into the champion's mindset and draw out of you today all of these great I'm calling them nuggets of knowledge that you have to share with our group.
Absolutely. I'd be more than happy to. Well, when I was 1 month old, no, I won't go that far. But just to give you the background, I was born in London, England. Both my parents were Jamaican and sporty types. They both did some sort of sport. My mom was a high jumper and a javelin, a thrower, and my dad did the hurdles. So it's kind of inevitable that would end up probably in the sports arena, which I did, which actually led me to where I am today, which is Los Angeles, California. I was recruited to run track for the University of Southern California. So I've had a long history in fitness and health and wellness. And with my career, when I look back now, and sometimes during it, but when I look back now, I can really, really see how the mind played into so many of my experiences and how having a certain type of mindset was either detrimental or beneficial to what it was I was trying to do. It's literally a pattern of, when my mind was in the right place, my career trajectory went off. And then when my mind started going in the wrong direction, my career and my life, because, they're intertwined, was going north, south, right? And so, with my history, as I started to get more and more in the direction of becoming an Olympian and becoming an Olympic medalist, I wanted to find, what's the thing that's going to make the difference? Because once you get to elite levels, everyone's talented, right? When you're young and you're coming up, you might be the standout. But once you get to the Olympics, everybody's great. You don't get to the Olympics by just being average. So I wanted to know what was going to make the difference. And so I did my research. I interviewed other athletes who had accomplished what I wanted to accomplish. And I remember interviewing there had only been one medalist in my event for my country, for Great Britain, up until that point. And I wanted to know how she did it. And so I interviewed her, and she talked about the mindset and how 80% of the fact that she had become the gold medalist in the 400-meter hurdles, which was both of our events, was mental. And so now you start to look into the personal development world, and it's like, oh, this isn't just physical. So that's really how my journey began. I started off at university and then went on to become a professional athlete, competing both in Sydney, Australia in 2000. I had my son in 2004, so I missed Athens Olympics. And then in 2008, against all the odds, I got a medal in the 2008 Beijing Olympic Games.
That's so awesome. So was it in college that you decided that you wanted to pursue an Olympic medal?
It's so weird because when I was never like a Shirley Temple who, at the age of 3 saw the television and wanted to become, I was always sort of like a person who, like, I couldn't have even told you some of the star athletes at the time when I was younger. I was a person who I was talented, and it was always the next thing. I always wanted to get to the next thing. So the Olympics came when that became the next thing. So my senior year at the University of Southern California, I actually made my first Olympic team in Sydney. And I don't know if you can see this, but this is the medal that they gave us for participating in Sydney.
Cool.
Right. So that was really fun. And it was very interesting because 3 of us were there. There were 3 of us for Great Britain competing at that games. And because of what I had learned as a youngster, in my events, because I remember competing against senior athletes and I was so nervous. I was shaking, I was really skinny and tiny. And I remember, this lady over here, she looked like Arnold Schwarzenegger. This one over here looked like Rocky. And I was like a little 14-year-old. And I was so nervous. I got into my blocks. The mind was all over the place. The gun went off and I got left behind. But what really made the switch for me and changed basically my entire career from that point was when I looked at the results. Had I come in the top, had I just ran normally, the time that I knew I could run, my own great time for my age, I would have actually come in the top 2 in that race against these senior women who were, fully developed, strong and all that. And that something switched on in my little 14-year-old mind that said, just because you're physically ready, if you're not mentally ready, then all of your physical work can be in vain. They both have to work together. You have to have the synchronicity between the body and the mind to get the best results. And so by the time 2000 came around, the first Olympics that I went to, I was walking in the place because I changed my mindset after that. Instead of focus on everybody else, I started focusing, well, you know what? I started giving myself empowering statements rather than disempowering statements. I would say things like, it's still 10 hurdles. It's still just 1 lap around the track. It doesn't get any longer because I'm at the Olympics. They don't add more hurdles because I'm at the Olympics. So I started feeding my mind with things that would make me feel great. And so by the time I got to 2000, I was like, hey, how you guys doing? I'm walking in the place like I own it. And so when you have that sort of different approach, when you change your perspective, right, you can walk in as a champion. You can go in as a champion mindset because you're not defeated before you even arrive. And so I think that really set my mental trajectory off in a completely different direction.
That's so great. It's almost like you just flipped a switch, and then every experience that you had after that was different than that first one where you felt small. So can you just help us define this? Like, why do you think first of all, what is a champion's mindset, and why do you think it's so important?
What is a champion's mindset? I think a champion's mindset is the type of mindset that is able to rise above adversity. Basically, that's what it boils down to, right? Because we are always going to encounter adversity. It's how we handle that adversity that really makes the difference. That's what really defines a champion versus an average person, right? And you can be a champion at anything. You can be a champion in communication. You can be a champion at parenting. You can be a champion at mowing the lawn. You can be a champion at anything you decide to be a champion at, but you have to decide, right? And so when we have, when we're looking at what a champion mindset is, it's really getting the tools and the skills that take you above and beyond. What happens for most of us, which is why, people set New Year's resolutions, and by January 15th, 92% of people fail at that. The same with goals. Most people don't set goals. About 70% of the 80% of people that actually set a goal fail, right? That's a massive number. What is going on? Why is this number so high? It's because we overlook a lot of the really simple things that it requires to have a champion mindset. What people want to create is an above average lifestyle, or an above average experience, or above average success. But a lot of people are not willing to do the above average things that it takes to have that success. So, and that's simple things like, maybe we're always late, right? We want an above average life, but we're not willing to do the work to be on time for the things that are important to us. And it's those little dotting of the I's and crossing the T's that make all the difference. And that's why it's important. The champion mindset is important because it sets you up to have the life that you desire, right? I think there's a quote by Les Brown, and it says, if you don't program your life, life will program for you. Right? It's something like that, which is basically saying, if you don't become the master of your life and your mind, then your environment is going to determine for you your experience. But we always have the choice. Even if we go through adversity, we do have a choice in how we perceive and how we respond and react to that.
I so appreciate your perspective, and this idea around the champion's mindset and rising above adversity is so important and so relevant for all of us today, because we're just constantly being bombarded with new information or misinformation or, fear that's designed to program us in a certain way. And I'm so excited for our audience to get this information from you today, because like you said, what you have to share and the things that people can start doing today are actually fairly pretty simple. And it sounds like they just need to kind of rinse and repeat some really good habits. So can you tell us, what are some of the key elements that you think are very important to include as part of this champion's mindset?
100%. Well, first and foremost, we need to have goals. Okay. Just starting from the foundation, right? Goals give us purpose. Goals give us a measure, right? And goal gives us a standard. And what do I mean by that? Purpose, of course, we all know what purpose is, right? Some of us may say, I don't know what my purpose is. But even as soon as we have a goal, we have something that we're moving towards. So we have a reason, we have a purpose, we're going in a direction. If I say I want to go to the Olympics, I may go as a spectator. I've got to be clear about what my goal is. I want to go to compete in a particular event, right? So it's important to have the goals. So that's where the purpose comes in, gives us some reason to be excited to move. Then with a measure, it gives us a gauge to identify whether or not we are on track. If I say I want to be a best-selling author, if I said in 2021, that I wanted to be a best-selling author, then years later, months later, I haven't even written a sentence, I can really get clear about the fact that I am not on target, and I either need to reassess my goal or I need to do something to get on track. So it gives us a measure. And then it gives us a standard, of who we are as people, a standard by which we are going to live our lives. So for example, if I say, I want to be a person who is not quick to react, just flies off the handle easily, is aware that people are going through things and they may come at me in a way I don't like, but maybe they're going through something. I want to be that type of person, compassionate and tolerant. Now, I'm driving down the road in Los Angeles and someone cuts me off. Am I going to jump out of my car, grab a baseball bat, jump onto their car and start smashing windows? Probably not, because my goal is to be a completely different person. So goals give us that standard by which we live our lives. So that's the number one. Then we have to make sure the goal is ours, right? A lot of us are living somebody else's definition of who we should be, right? Whether intentionally or unintentionally. It's our boss's goal, it's our partner's goal, it's our kids' goal. And we're like somewhere way in the back down the list. When I've completed all these things for all these other people, then I might actually be able to do what makes me happy. But what we have to realize is when we are fulfilling what drives us, that innate passion, that thing that just really switches us on, switches us on, everybody wins anyway, right? It's when we're going up against ourselves that it starts to get really difficult. You're not super happy. People can feel that energy. It's clear and it gets contentious. So once you have your goal and once you're sure that your goal is yours, right? You have a compelling reason why you want to achieve that goal. Like some people might say, I want to have a home with 5 bedrooms and a pool. That's not why that's not the reason why you have that goal. That's the reason. What is the reason behind that? You want to have a house and with 5 bedrooms and a pool because you believe that will make you happy, right? That's the real reason. And it could be happiness through love. Maybe you're going to be able to have more family over. Maybe you're going to feel proud of yourself because now your kids have somewhere where they can grow up their entire lives. And that's actually the real thing that you're looking for. So you have that foundation. Now you got to decide, right? You got to get clear. You got to completely get clear about what it is you want. A lot of us have wishy-washy goals. I want to be wealthy. What is that? Like wealthy to one person is completely different to another. Well, I want to make more money every month. Well, how much money every month? Right. And what exactly do you want to make? Is it like, and people can tell you what they don't want, but it's very hard often for them to sort of articulate what they do want. So is it 100? So if I give you said you want more money a month, right? Okay, I'm going to give you an extra $1 a month. They're going to look at me like I'm crazy. Right. But when I ask them how much exactly, they don't know. So we have to be clear. And then we have to decide clearly what we want. And we can do that by contrast. It's okay to contrast. If I say to you, I really want to be in a loving relationship. Well, what does that look like exactly? Are you talking about somebody who's with you 24 hours a day, 7 days a week? No, that's too much. Okay. All right. So maybe they're with you for a few hours a day, but they're totally ignoring you the whole time. They're on their phone. No. I want someone who's attentive when we're together. So now you can start to use the contrast of what you know you don't want to create clarity in what you do want. So once you have that definite clarity, the next thing that I say you need is focus. We're so good at focusing on what we don't want, right? We're so good at I wish my boss this and I wish my boss that. And, I don't like the way this is happening. I don't like the way that's happening. I wish I could do that. And all the doubt and all that stuff starts to creep in. But we have to create a belief around what it is we want to achieve so that we can really focus on it. And I think that used to really, really bother me. Like personal development gurus would say, you just have to believe. And I'm like, believe from where? Like, where am I just going to magically, I'm 30th in the world and I want to be number 1. How do I just magically believe? Well, of course, because I wanted the answer to that, I did research into the mind and into the brain. And so what I discovered is that visualization is a massively powerful tool to create belief, right? And it's a massively powerful tool to retrain the mind. So lots of people will start on a health kick, for example, and they fail. And they're kicking themselves. What's wrong with you? You've got no willpower. You suck. And it's gone and on and on. When they don't realize it's not the lack of willpower. Willpower isn't what does it. I mean, in some instances, yes, people are able to like grit their way through it. But your brain has already been trained in a particular behavior. right? So if your behavior is to eat donuts and feel very good, all that chemical stuff is going on. And your brain has, that this neuroplasticity where it shortcuts everything. So it's going to keep using that pattern. Like, I don't have to think to myself, oh, I'm going to pick up this bottle of C60, and my brain is not doing that. I don't even have to think about it. When I was a baby, you could see babies have a hard time because they're creating those pathways. Now, those happen with our thoughts, those happen with our actions, those happen with our speech. And so in order to create a new habit, we have to create new neural pathways. We have to create a whole new, and it takes time sometimes because these paths are well trodden. Now we're trying to go into a jungle where there's no path etched out. We have to do that. How do we do that? We sit and visualize what we actually want to create. We speak on what we actually want to create. We talk from an empowered perspective, like I talked about earlier. Like, oh, instead of saying, oh my God, what could go wrong here? I'm saying to myself, well, actually, I might have to speak to 3,000 people, but I've spoken to one person, and it's just one person multiplied, right? It's nothing different. I'm just speaking. So that's how we start to create those new pathways, and we just keep working at it. And so instead of beating ourselves up, I'm a failure, I'm this, I didn't, just recognize that is what your brain's job is. Your job's brain is to shortcut things for you, right? And so you need to now teach it, hey, we need to do something different. We're going on a new path now. And this is how we're going to do it, through the visualization, through the seeing, through understanding that the subconscious. Now, if the subconscious mind is controlling 95+% of our actions every day, right? We think I'm doing this all on my own. But that's not true. Science has proven 95% of our actions and our thinking and all of that is controlled by the subconscious mind. So only about 5 to 10% is conscious. So if 95% is controlled by the subconscious mind, we have to know how to talk to it, how to reprogram it. Subconscious mind works in images. What is visualization? Image. The brain doesn't know the difference between what is mentally rehearsed in the mind and what is actually happening in real life. And so science has proven that this is why I say people overlook the very simple things that we can do every day. Writing out your goals with a pen and paper or pencil and paper versus typing them in your computer. I believe it's 16,000. It creates 16,000 new neural pathways versus 600. It's somewhere around there. I can look it up for you. But that's the difference. And so just actually the act of writing, Grant Cardone actually writes his goals out every morning and evening because he knows the power of just literally writing that out, of putting that down on paper. So that's a simple thing. Every morning and every evening, a simple thing. When you brush your teeth, just mentally rehearse in your mind, like attaching it to something you're already doing. Mentally rehearse in your mind how you want your life to be. And these are very simple things. You don't have to go and climb no mountain. You don't have to hire 20 people. This is stuff you can do. You don't have to pay anybody. Stuff you can do right there in your seat. And then obviously the next thing is to get into action. Get into momentum. That's the third thing, obviously, that you'll need to do. You're like, you could do all this, but then you actually have to move. You have to move into action. The plan works when you work the plan, as Jack Canfield say. So then you act, right? And a lot of us will need accountability, right? So that's a great way. Do not underestimate. So all these little things that I'm telling you are very easy to just brush off and not take seriously. Accountability. Every champion, Olympic champion, has an accountability partner. I can guarantee it. Guess why? They have a coach. That is their accountability. It's inbuilt into the system. So if they're late to practice, they know somebody's going to be saying, hey, where were you? If they don't run the times they're supposed to run, if they don't do the things they're supposed to do, they know somebody's going to be checking in. Hey, so if you want, I can't remember who did the study, but the study proved that you have a 65% increased chance of achieving a goal if you commit it to someone. And if you and that person that you've committed that goal to check in on a regular basis, say like weekly, hey, how are you getting on with that goal? Did you get done what you want to do? What do you plan to do next week? 95% increased chance. So now this whole stat where 95% of people fail on their goals by 2 weeks after making those goals, that is completely shifted by creating an accountability, right? So you're setting up an environment where you can allow yourself to succeed, where these old habits can be pushed out through the new actions that you're taking. So that is the long answer to what you asked.
No, I think it's wonderful. I think you've really broken down like the importance of goal setting, what's entailed, and why it's so important. So I really appreciate that. I want to kind of take it one step deeper. Can you tell us a little bit about what kind of daily habits do you think are important once you've set the goal, and once you have your clarity and your compelling reason why, and your focus, and you're taking action, and you've have an accountability coach, then what types of daily steps in addition to that goal setting? And I know you mentioned Grant Cardone, and he's doing the writing every day, but what else is entailed in the champion's mindset?
Absolutely. I think if someone were to say to me, I can only do one thing ever. I can only do one thing. What would that one thing be? Visualization, without a shadow of a doubt, should be a daily habit, even if it's a few minutes in the morning, a few minutes in the night. Whenever I do a presentation, I always have a moment where I stop people and I say, I want you just to close your eyes for a moment. And I want you to envision the goal that you would most like to accomplish, right? And I want you to really just go there. And imagine you're living that experience on a 10. Like everything you could have possibly imagined has come to fruition and even more. And see how you feel. Like, who are you around? What experiences are you having? Who are you seeing? How are you holding yourself? How are you walking? Are your shoulders back? Are you proud? Are you confident? What energy do you have? What energy are you exuding? How are people interacting with you? Are they smiling? Are they, what's happening? Did you just get a call to confirm the deal? And I have them go through that process. And without a shadow of a doubt, every single time, even if we only spend 60 seconds on it, they have a reaction. It made me smile. It gave me goosebumps, right? Because there is a whole other world of energy that is in operation. And the fact is, like attracts like. This has been proven. Everything has energy. Our thoughts have our energy. Our feelings are energy. So when we can go to that place where we are actually creating the energy of what we want to bring back into our experience, it's a whole nother world. So if I were to tell someone what is a champion mindset, and if you ask athletes, they visualize. The best of the best, probably 99% of the top athletes have some sort of mental rehearsal practice. And that's what visualization is. And it's not just sort of seeing it as like a distant connection. It's feeling it, like being in the experience. So that's definitely, like, if nothing else, do that. Absolutely write your goals down. And if you can have them with you, maybe in your wallet or something. I remember Jim Rohn is someone I have a lot of respect for. His one of the personal development grandfathers, right? And he had a mentor called Mr. Schoff. And the first time he went to see Mr. Schoff, he said, Mr. Scholl said to him, okay, young man, because his life was upside down at this time. He said, young man, go ahead and give me your list of goals and then we'll get started. And he says, I don't have it. And he was like, okay, well, no problem. Just run to the car and get your goals and come back. He said, no, I don't have any goals written down. He said, well, young man, now we see where the issue is. And so from that point on, Jim Rohn began to create his goals, and he always had them with him. And he said that just completely changed the trajectory of his life. So where you can, if not at least weekly, sort of be checking in with your goals, making sure you're on point, daily habits, visualization. I would also, like I said, write down goals if you can, or at least read them. or at least have a thought process about them, which you would do if you were visualizing. And I would say with, making sure that accountability, it wouldn't be every day necessarily, but making sure that accountability piece is a part of your process. And it's just that simple. Like, we want to think that this, athletes and superstars and movie stars are doing some crazy different thing. Maybe they're drinking snake's venom or like lizard blood or something.
Maybe on accident.
Yeah, but there really isn't. Like, success has a blueprint, has a framework, and it's the implementation of it where people get thrown off. So it's really just doing these simple things. And people have created mega business, like Tony Robbins has created mega business of teaching people how to implement these strategies. But those ones for me are absolutely key. They changed my career. Like, even when I went to the 2008 Olympics, I had the worst season of my life. I say it's the best and the worst season ever. And even when I was having those experiences, because I had been doing all this mental work, seeing myself on the podium, seeing myself crossing the Olympic line and pointing up to my coach and waving at the fans, I was doing that constantly. When I was going through these struggles, it was so difficult. My reality in my mind was so strongly connected to what I had created in my head. I couldn't fathom this reality that I was actually in having anything to do with the end result, right? And so instead of it being easy for me to quit and say, well, I'm injured, it's Olympic year, I'll never have enough time to get ready. Oh, I'm injured again in Olympic year, never have enough time. Oh, 3 times I was injured 3 times during the actual season, not leading up to, during the actual season. Oh, well, yeah, I guess that's it for me. I went to my trials and I had been running so poorly. There was no reason on earth for them to take me to the games. I didn't win my trials, so that's even more reason. And they had another girl who was, up and coming, so it was a perfect opportunity for her to go and get some experience. And even then, after my little meltdown that I didn't come first, even then, it's like my brain snapped back because of all the work that I was doing. It's not that I'm just so tough. It's that I had been working on it all the time. So when those things were happening, I literally heard my mind say, no, it can't be that I'm not going. It just cannot be. I couldn't even fathom it. And I was right. I did end up going and I did end up doing well. Right? So it says a lot about how the power of your mind can really help you overcome adversity and create the life that you want.
It sounds like to me that you have figured out that by doing this daily practice of visualization and reconnecting to your goals, that you've built resiliency into your body and your way of life. And so it sounds like even if you get the news that you don't want, you're still going to keep on moving forward without getting discouraged, without giving up, and you're still, focused on those goals. So that's hugely powerful for all of us just to think about right now, because we need to be more resilient. So this is really important.
Absolutely.
stuff.
And I like that you brought up the emotional side of it, because that's often what gets in the way of us. We let our emotions determine whether we're going to take action, right? So Susan Jeffers has a book called Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway. And I like to twist it a little bit and say, feel the funk and do it anyway, because sometimes you feel funky. You don't want to do it. I can't tell you how many times I didn't want to do a training session. I probably didn't want to train more than I wanted to train, but you do it anyway because you have a compelling reason. That's why it's so important to have that compelling reason. And like people say, oh, I don't know how to visualize. Well, I'm actually working on my financial life and elevating that to another level, right? And so I realized that it was challenging for me to envision something I hadn't experienced before, right? That can be a challenge for us. So what I started doing is writing out my story, so that I could record it into a device and play it back to myself and use it as a guided meditation. And I'll read to you, because I just happen to have it here, right? I'll read to you how it began. It goes, you open your eyes after experiencing the most beautiful and the most restorative sleep you have ever had, to see the dawn sky. The view is so amazing. And every time you see it, it feels like the first time. You're filled with such gratitude to know that you live here. This is your home. This is your space. Your schedule allows you to have your mornings to yourself, and you use the time to really nurture your wellness. And so this is me now sitting down and consciously creating the story of what I want to visualize and invite into my life. Right. So now I'm going to take that, and, obviously it's going to be a lot more than what I told you. I'm going to take that, I'm going to record it. And in the mornings and in the evenings, I'm going to close my eyes, sit down, I'm going to play it and envision this story that I've created. And so that's, if you're stuck, that's a powerful way that you can start to retrain your brain. And here's the thing, that the other thing that our brain does, right? It's called Reticular Activating System, right? The RAS system. Now, I don't know if you've ever noticed that when you talk about something in particular, you say, I think I would love to have a yellow Lamborghini. And all of a sudden you start seeing yellow Lamborghinis everywhere, right? It's not that they've just suddenly started mass producing yellow Lamborghinis. It's because your reticular activating system is in play. What that means is the brain is now filtering out anything that hasn't got, as much as it can, things that don't have to do with what you're interested in. That's how the brain works, because we are getting bombarded with information to our senses, overwhelmingly, right? And the brain filters out, okay, no, I'm only going to show you that. I'm only going to show you that. So when we have goals and when we are looking at things from a particular mindset, what our brain does will filter out things that are irrelevant so that we can start to notice and identify what is useful to us. So as we are writing down our goals, we are giving our brain instruction. Hello, brain. Sorry, I haven't been clear before now, but this is what I'm interested in, right? And so the brain is now like, oh, okay, you want to have your own home, fully paid off. Awesome. So now you're actually going to notice the people, the places, and the things that will make that possible, right? And as you start to do that, you start to have more experiences that align with that. As that happens, you start to have more confidence. As you have more confidence, you start to take more action. As you take more action, you start to create the life you want, right? And so the brain is so amazing because there's so many ways that it works. And there's, this mindset that we talk about, this champion mindset, is not by happenstance. It's something that we and athletes create. Of course, some people are more inclined, how they were raised, how, their personality, all that type of stuff, to sort of naturally be more, on top of it with mindset. But for the most of us, we have to work at it. We have to actually work at it. But the brain can work in your favor if you know how the brain operates in order to train it to do things the way you want.
That's so cool. Okay, so what is your perspective on, healthy lifestyle choices such as, proper nutrition and water, and you mentioned sleep? Talk to us a little bit about how taking care of the body can also support this champion's mindset.
It is everything to do with the mindset. You are feeding your body with whatever you put in it. Like, the brain is not just some separate thing over here and it just works because it's, its own entity. It works because you're healthy. So if I am consuming things that make me unhealthy, it doesn't say, I'm going to just go to the belly and I'm just going to make the belly unhealthy. No, everything you put in your body goes all over the place. It's in your blood. It goes into it's your brain. It's everywhere. So if we don't have wellness, if we're not consuming wellness, if we're not taking care of ourselves, it's cellular, it's at every level. And so it may show up predominantly in a certain area. Oh, my kidney, my stomach, my digestion, I've constipated, my colon's down the drain. It may show up in certain areas, but trust, the entire system is under pressure. My mom has been a health practitioner for over 40 years, and she's always saying, thy food is thy health. She's always talking about the fact that it doesn't matter what the ailment, it all comes down to how we're caring for ourselves, right? It all comes, so it's vitally important to have proper nutrition, to care for yourself, and you may have to create that habit. Like if you grew up in a home where nobody ate vegetables, or nobody cared about health, or they laugh at you when you say you'd like to try a plant-based lifestyle, or they call you a hippie because you want to do things differently, then I say when people are making fun of you, you're probably doing a good thing, right? And so it's 1,000%. I'm always looking like how can I do things a little bit better to improve my health. And I say I'm sort of like for my personality type, sometimes I just have to put a fork in the road and just do it 100%, because if I dabble in it, I'll just keep going back and forth. But for other people, your personality type may mean just pick one thing. So this week, I'm going to make sure I have at least 2 salads, right? This week, I'm going to make sure I take my C60 at least 4 times a week because I haven't taken it in 2 weeks, or whatever the thing may be, and start to increase as you build that habit. But a lot of the ailments out there, I would say, in my opinion, with the proper nutrition and wellness, would not exist. Right? Even the ones that are handed down to children through pregnancy, they wouldn't exist. So when you really start studying wellness and you really start studying nutrition, you will be astonished at what you can accomplish with even very small changes.
I appreciate that message. It's so empowering, and it's totally true. Talk to us a little bit about the importance of this champion's mindset as we age, because when you and I first met, we were bonding over the fact that we're over 40, things have kind of shifted in our body, we're noticing subtle changes, and we're not necessarily excited about these things. So we really want to take back control over our health and feel empowered and feel excited about the future, rather than, buying into this idea that, once you hit a certain age, then everything's kind of downhill from there. So can you talk to us a little bit about just the importance of mindset as we age, and like what's available on the other side of this aging?
You hit the nail on the head. I don't even really have to say it, because at the end of the day, it's addressing the lie that as we age, we're supposed to become decrepit and, hunched over and everything should become difficult and strenuous and we should lose our minds. This is an absolute fallacy. It's a complete and utter lie. And we can have exceptional and optimal health until our last breath. We can actually pass peacefully in our sleep. Well, that is what is our true reality. Why? Because the body is designed to constantly try to keep healing itself, right? It's constantly working to make itself in perfect condition. What gets in the way? We do. The environment we're in. We got all this, Wi-Fi and all these kind of things, and we've got all these toxins in the air. We've got our food is polluted, water's polluted. So we're constantly, the body's like, it's just like the longest boxing match ever. Right? And so with the mind, as it pertains to aging, it's really standing firm in the knowledge that you don't have to become unhealthy just because you're aging. That is a misnomer. That is not true, right? And once you accept that, once you say, I can age, and the thing is, you don't have to go far to figure it out. Go Google, great looking elderly people, Google, Jada Pinkett's mother or somebody, these people, Grace Jones, Tina Turner, some of these people look amazing. Some of them have done some things, but I'm talking about the ones that really have done things naturally. How are they doing it? I was just looking at this woman. She's been completely plant-based for, I think, 50 or so years. She looks in her 30s. She looks absolutely stunning. Her skin is flawless. She's completely raw as well. So she eats raw. Not saying that's what people have to do, but it just shows that healthy. Her mind is clear. She's still very active. She hasn't like downplayed her life or anything. Oh, now I have to do less because of this and because no, she plants her own foods. She grows her. I mean, and she's all over the place. And her husband, he didn't switch over when she did. And he's like, they asked him, they said, do you wish you would have switched over when she did? And he said, yeah, but now I'm so old, I don't feel, and his hair is completely gray. She has like maybe one strand of gray hair. And it just shows like the contrast between two people living in the same household, completely different perspective on wellness and how that has played out. She is vibrant, she's standing, she has no, back and all this stuff. So really with the mind, we have to stop believing the lies basically and continue to remind ourselves that aging is not some ghastly thing that comes upon us. It's actually one of the most beautiful stages of our lives where we are now, they say, what is it? Age is wasted on the young or something like that. Wisdom is wasted on the young. I can't remember the phrase, but it's basically saying that, youth is wasted on the young because you have all this vibrancy, but you've got no sense, right? But now when you're older, you're in like the golden years where you have more sense. And now that quote doesn't even apply because you actually can have youth as an older person, right? So no, it's not wasted because you could be young and vibrant and healthy still at an older age. So if you operate from that mindset, and like even with all the stuff going on today, I'll take the little bits so I have knowledge, but I don't just download all this stuff. Oh, this is terrible. I can't have that kind of stuff in my mind. I need to be able to operate from a very high frequency, right? There's enough things going on. And so I operate from the mindset, okay, I'll know just enough to just be aware of what's going on, but it doesn't really concern me because I'm taking care of myself, right? I don't really need to be that concerned about that going on over there because I know I've done the research to know what I need to protect myself from that. So I don't have to live in fear and worry and someone's going to, so really it's just changing your perspective and not having the expectation. Because having the expectation that you have to become decrepit will actually bring that about. So expect health, expect to discover the answers, to take that last breath with a smile on your face.
I love that idea. That's beautiful. Can you talk to us a little bit about your perspective on faith as it relates to a champion's mindset, whether that be prayer or meditation, but like how does spirituality and faith play into supporting a champion's mindset?
Well, I mean, it's all there, right? It's all there. This is like everything I'm saying is not new information. It's all there. Like if you take the Bible, for example, it says, ask and ye shall receive, right? Ask. So if that is true and everything is energy, right? When we think something, we are asking. That's what people don't understand. We are actually asking in the thought process. So when we keep focusing on a particular thing, oh man, I think my car's getting old. It's just going to break down. We're putting that out as a prayer because words have power, right? We need to focus on what we actually want to receive. So we have to ask for what we actually want, not what we don't want. And so all these things play into. So like I said, a lot of people, they're not clear on their goals. So when they're asking, there's no clarity. There's nothing. They're focused on what they don't want. They don't know how to ask. They don't know the reason why. So that's part of creating from a faith perspective, from a spiritual perspective. Now we talked about writing your goals down, right? The Bible says, write the vision and make it plain, so he who sees it will run. Right? So he may run who sees it, right? So that's also talking about the spiritual side. Like these concepts are not new. All these things that personal development gurus are talking about are not new. That's something that's in a text that was written thousands and thousands of years ago, right? Write it down. It says, write the vision. And it should be so exciting that people who see it want to get involved. They want to run to it, right? So there's all these different things, and, in the spiritual sense that like back up the process, right? Whatever you ask for in prayer, believe that you will receive it and it shall be yours, right? Why is that? We just talked about the fact that science has proven that what we see in our minds, we are attracting energetically, right? Everything is energy. Thoughts and feelings are energy. So if we are, whatever we are asking for in prayer, and prayers are our thoughts. So as we're sitting down there visualizing, that's like a prayer, right? So as we're doing that and we're believing it, this is why the feeling part of it is so important. Like we're visualizing, we're not just sitting down there as if we're watching some, mindless TV show. We're actually inside of that experience and we're believing that this is ours, right? We're creating that confidence. Our brain is starting to say, oh, yeah, this is actually something that can happen. Then that's going to start creating that in our experience, right? So that's that. Then there's different scriptures like when you ask, right, you have to believe but not be double-minded. And a person who is double-minded should not expect to receive anything, right? What is that talking about? A person who's double-minded is like on one hand saying one thing, but on the other hand, the doubt, the fear, and all that stuff come into play. Now, of course, we're human beings. We're going to have a certain degree of doubt sometimes, right? But doubt isn't of a high vibration, right? Doubt isn't something that's of a godly realm, right? Doubt is from another arena that if we are trying to be in this arena of high vibration and we're trying to be in this arena of getting what we ask for, when you ask, you believe, there really isn't any room for doubt, right? And so we have to come from a perspective of recognizing that when doubt and fear start to come into play, we are not in alignment with spiritual law. There are spiritual laws, just like gravity. If I jump onto this ceiling, this roof, and I jump off of it, probably not going to work out well for me. Right? The same with spiritual laws. If we go outside of the spiritual laws, we have to suffer the consequences. And what people do is they say, "Oh well, God is punishing me." Well, God has laws, like there's spiritual laws, and there's a consequence to the laws if you live outside of them. So if we're always in the negative, we're always perceiving things from a doubtful, fearful mind, and then we're surprised when things don't work out, right? But it's because we're not really in alignment with spiritual law. Now, it doesn't matter what faith you are, right? I'm just speaking from a biblical sense, but it doesn't matter what faith you are, the spiritual laws are the same, right? The sky is blue, whether I believe it or not. I can sit here and say it's purple all I want, but it's blue, right? So, and then even when I said like decide, focus, act, like action. The Bible says, whoever hears these sayings of mine and does them, I will liken him to a wise man who has built his house on a rock, who has built his house on a rock, a solid foundation. So you hear the things that you need to do in order to elevate your life spiritually, right? And you actually put them into play. That's when you're going to see results. Be doers and not hearers only. So there's a whole energetic, like whatever word you want to use, spiritual process, higher source, divine intelligence. That is at play. There's something bigger than us that put this body together, created these blood, these cells. Like I didn't sit here and make me. Right? So something else is at play. And that whole realm is actually way more powerful than the physical world that we live in. It's just we are so attached to this physical realm that we can get really sometimes detached. So it's really important, I think, to take that time to go inwards, to take time to meditate and connect with that source that's higher than us, to pray, to get clear about what it is we want to accomplish. Like ask and you will receive. Well, if you're asking is all wishy-washy, and then you're like, oh, I never get what I want. You never get what you want because you're never clear. You have not because you ask not is also a biblical scripture. So if you don't have what you want, it's because you're not asking in the right way. So it's important to really create a real good, strong foundation in terms of spirituality and centering yourself and trying to listen to the answers. Like one of my mentors would always say, we live the answers to the questions that we're asking. And we're not always clear about what we're asking. But if we look at our lives, we often are living the answers to the questions we're asking. So for example, if someone is saying, how comes I just can't seem to make enough money? As opposed to, who do I need to become to make the kind of money I want, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And then once we've asked that question in the right manner, we're actually open to receiving the answer. Well, I think God's just going to leave a letter on my bedside table with the answer. No, like it could be something that you see on TV or something that someone says in a grocery store. You have to be ready for the answer.
Well, it sounds like part of, what your mentor was teaching you, if I'm hearing this accurately, please correct me if I'm wrong, but it sounds like he was asking you to frame the questions that you ask yourself differently, almost like with more curiosity versus a statement that's negative. It's framing the question in a way that would help bring the answer to you, potentially through your subconscious, rather than just making a marked statement that would continue to perpetuate that situation in your life over and over again.
100%. Florence Shinn has a book called Your Word is Your Wand, right? And the Game of Life, right? And in it, this is so powerful. It doesn't matter whether you're making a statement or a question. The fact is you're speaking, you're using one of the most powerful things you have, which is your tongue. So when she was saying that to me, she was basically showing how important questions are. Even let's just, again, go back to the Bible. The Bible has over 3,000 questions. And even if you look at, for example, when people ask people of knowledge questions in the Bible, say someone like asked Jesus a question, for example, a lot of the time you'll notice that the response is in a question. It's a question because questions are so powerful. So instead of saying, oh, well, you got to make sure you turn left when you go down the road, it's like, do you not know the way? That's a question. So it tells us there's something very special about questions and how we ask them. And so that's what I say, I like using empowering questions as opposed to disempowering questions. Why can't I ever figure this out is not an empowering question. How comes I keep making the same mistake is not an empowering question. Now that sounds like an empowering question. Like, how come I keep making you may not be even intentionally being disempowering. You're like, how comes I keep making the same mistake? As opposed to, who do I need to become to do this in a way that will elevate my life? That's completely different.
That makes a lot of sense. Do you think that might be one of the most kind of detrimental habits that gets in the way of people developing this champion's mindset is just that the way that we're framing the questions that we're actually asking ourselves?
Yeah, it's how we talk to ourselves. Right. Number one, we tend to talk to ourselves worse than we talk to anybody else. We'd never talk to ourselves the way we'd never talk to our friends the way we talk to ourselves half the time. So there's that, just that alone. Oh, what's wrong with you? You're so stupid. Like we would never say that to our best friend. And so we're not our own best friend half the time. So that really plays in. And then, like you said, we're asking our questions in the wrong way and we don't even realize it. Right. So we're disarming ourselves and disempowering ourselves and attracting the answer. So if something about our life isn't manifesting the way that we would, we have to really check in and say, where am I be asking the wrong questions, right? Where are my emotional energies at? Where is my emotional attachment to this situation at? What do I need to work on? Which emotions do I need to work on to become the type of person? How do I create a life where I'm of service? How do I become the person who can give rather than take? All these different ways that we can start talking to ourselves. But sometimes we have to employ the help of other people because even myself, who pride myself on trying to be positive and things like that, I would not catch some of the negative things. And then it would be somebody else saying, well, no, don't say that. Or a mentor saying, well, no, with reframing. I'm like, man, I didn't even realize I was doing that. So sometimes we, if we have a supportive environment, family, friends, we can ask them, hey, listen, if you see me saying anything crazy, anything of this nature, like just call me out on it so I can start changing.
That's
Some
powerful,
people will even
then you're
put
really you're asking your community to help support you with this champion's mindset and bringing forth the things that you're desiring to manifest in your life.
Absolutely.
And kind of engaging more people to be that accountability coach, which I think is really cool. What kind of I want to be respectful of your time, and we've been chatting for a bit here, but I've just got a couple more. Okay. I'm curious, Tasha. You're a mom, and I'm curious, what advice would you have for parents to help instill this champion's mindset in their children as they're hearing their children, share information with them or make statements about themselves? Like, this is not uncommon, for girls to be like, oh, I'm not as fast as the boys, or I'm not good at math, or things like that. When you hear your child say a negative kind of I am statement, what's a best practice to kind of help them shift and reframe that inner dialogue that will support, improve self-esteem and more kind of bringing forth this champion's mindset?
What I found, and, this was a struggle for me because, early on, I didn't know as much when my son was coming up because he's, turning 18 this year. And also, I felt like don't want to be too pushy or anything like that. But, what I've learned is to ask them questions that challenge that thought process so they can come to their own conclusions. Like, I might just start digging into myself, like how, like when you say that you didn't do well, like how does it make you feel? Like, so getting them to recognize and maybe giving them other options, like, so is it possible that it could just be that, this is a time for you to learn, right? So you can learn something. So showing them how to create other possibilities rather than, sometimes we all as parents try and ram things down our kids' throat. Now, if they're really young, I would probably ram it down their throat, let's be honest, because just make it a way of life. This is just how we operate in this family. Mm-hmm. And it will save them a whole lot of challenges down the line. But I think for kids that are already sort of older and, already affected by the society that we live in today, which is very challenging for them. I never thought I'd sound like my mother and like, oh my God, the kids today. Well, I sound like my mom. Oh my God, the kids today. Like they really have it tough with all this social media and all this stuff that comes at them constantly. So it's just getting them to feel heard and having conversations with them and showing them alternative options. Like, well, maybe if you looked at it this way, like, what if we saw it from this perspective? What do you think about that? Or, even asking them, like, is there another possibility? And I've done that with my son, and he might be like, yeah, well, I suppose, da, da, da. And they start to see for themselves because they don't even know they're on a one-track process mentally. They're just thinking, by habit. So it's like teaching them how to challenge their thoughts. I think one of the best things I ever heard Dr. Joe Dispenza say was the day my life changed was the day I realized that just because I had a thought, it didn't make it true. And if we can teach our kids that just because they think something doesn't make it true, I think it can alleviate a lot of the challenges that they have with all the stuff that's thrown at them. Like, just because you believe this situation, it doesn't necessarily make it true. You should challenge every thought, even if it's your own.
That's great advice. Do you have any words of wisdom for people who are maybe feeling discouraged or overwhelmed by all just the constant kind of uncertainty and chaos and volatility that we're all living through right now? Any thoughts on how to really employ this champion's mindset to help navigate through just these weird times?
Yeah. Well, I will say from experience, because I went through depression, which led to a suicide attempt, right? When I really didn't understand how much control I was having over that process. And I know, how we eat and that kind of stuff can affect how we feel and how depression and things like that affect us. So I'm not saying that that experience isn't very real, right, physically for a lot of people, but in these times where we're feeling sort of stressed and all the pressure, I think one of the things that really helped me once I started to, because I shifted myself out of the depression, and I did it through gratitude, believe it or not. Again, just another simple thing that we overlook. We think it's got to be some magical thing. I've got to go find some roses from the back ends of Australia in the bush and it's under some special stone. No, I just literally started to force myself, because I didn't want to, force myself to write down every single day what I was actually grateful for. And what I didn't realize that I was doing at the time was I was shifting my focus, right, to attract things on a higher vibration. And then I started to feel differently. I know that Jack Canfield says to achieve major success, you must take 100% responsibility for your life. Nothing less will do. And I really love it because, and I know it's really hard for us to swallow that pill. It's like, because it's not my fault my mom's such and such. It's not my fault so-and-so hit me. But he has this equation called E plus R equals O. The event plus our response equals the outcome, right? So yes, we don't always have the opportunity to control the event, like maybe someone runs into us, but we can control how we respond to it. And that is automatically going to affect the result, right? That is going to affect the outcome. So it's important for us to take 100% responsibility in this environment that we're living in so that we can move away from feeling like we're victims, right? Listen, I know things aren't great. Things are constantly changing. It's super frustrating. But how can I see this in a way that will bless my life? How can I see this in a way that will elevate me to the next level? How can I turn this around and maybe use this to be of service to someone else? Right. So when we're thinking from those types of perspectives, now the world looks like a different place. Right. Now we're seeing things differently and we're able to move from an uplifted place. Like, are you always going to be able to do it? Like, no, we're not robots. We're not going to be like, oh, I am happy. I am, like you're not feeling happy. You're not feeling happy, but you can shift. What I really love is in Abraham Hicks, Esther Hicks and Jerry Hicks, they have what we call, if you can just move to the better feeling thought, always trying to challenge yourself to move from the better feeling thoughts. So of course, if someone passes away and you're experiencing grief, I just can't walk up to you and say, hey, listen, that grief is no good for you. Be joyful, right? That's unrealistic. You can't do that. So she talks about moving to the better feeling thought. What's the next maybe feeling thought that you can have that's, a level up from despair and grief? Maybe anger. Maybe anger is the next feeling thought up. Okay, so you know what? I'm angry. And then maybe from anger at some point you can move up to frustration. And maybe you can move up to boredom. And so there's even a chart. If you Google it, you'll find it. Just type better feeling thought. Abraham Hicks, you'll probably find it till you get to joy, right? And that is something that's always in the back of my mind, trying to use these simple tools that I don't have to pay anybody to obtain, right? To always keep myself in the highest vibrational state that I possibly can. Am I human? Yes. Do I always do it perfectly? No. But am I trying to do it more often than not? Absolutely. Because there's a type of lifestyle that I want to live, and it requires discipline and it requires effort on my part.
I think that's beautiful. I'm so glad that you reminded us about the power of both gratitude and personal responsibility, because none of us are victims. And we really, I'm totally in alignment with what you said. I really truly believe that when you shift your perspective, the world can become different and your experiences can become different. And I love, everything that you shared with us today about a champion's mindset. Tasha, thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your words of wisdom. And thank you for inspiring all of us today with your perspective.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure. I hope that, if there's nothing else. Like there's one little thing that everyone watching can just take and use to start moving in a new direction. So we're rooting for everybody.
I love that. Do you want to just tell us before we leave, if you wanted them to take away one thing, what would the one takeaway that you'd love for people to remember after this conversation?
I would say the one thing I want people to take away is to not overlook, do not overlook the power that you have in just your everyday process. Your everyday process is super powerful. Do not underestimate the power of just taking 60 seconds to envision the life that you want to create, and always work harder on you than you work on anything else. If you start focusing on being a better you, your entire life will change. I'll leave you with this quote from Jim Rohn. He said, "You can have more than you've got because you can become more than you are. But unless you can change how you are, you'll always have what you've got." So let's do the work on us. Not worried about, oh, he's not living up to my expectations. He's not doing this. Let's do the work on us, because if nothing else, my friends, know that the power is in your hands. Do that 60 seconds a day. Challenge yourself to do it for 90 days. Get a buddy to do it with you, and you'll see things start to shift.
I love it. Tasha, where can people find you? We'll post your links here and up on the screen, but tell us the best place for people to connect with you if they'd like to learn more about the work that you do with individuals, with organizations, with companies. How can people engage you and your brilliant mind?
Absolutely. My home address is, no, I'm just kidding.
Come on over to our house.
You can find me at home. So www.tasha360, like 360.com. I'm also on Instagram. Like, you can find all my social media there, but if you just want to go straight to, most of my Instagram handles are Tasha the Olympian. I'm also, my Gmail is also Tasha the Olympian at Gmail. So, but if you forget all that, just go to tasha360.com. It will give you
great.
all that.
Thank you so much for your time today. We so appreciate you and all of the contributions that you're making to help people stay inspired and keep a champion's mindset. We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Thank you so much.